Hello guys, welcome to another edition of our AppSheet videos. In this session, I'll be picking up where I left off. That's how you can create records from an Enumlist. So in my last video, what I did was, from an Enumlist, we created several records for each selection in the Enumlist. The downside with the approach we used was that each item in the Enumlist, or each item that was possible to be selected, had an action to create the record for that particular item when it was selected. And you can tell that if you have a very long Enumlist or possible list of items you can select from, that means you have to create a lot of actions. Or even if you have an Enumlist which is a ref, meaning the list can continue to grow as more people are added to the ref list, then you have a problem. In this video, I'm going to show you two ways of solving that problem. So join me and let's look at this in Appsheets. Okay, so like I mentioned, I'm going to be looking at two options on how you can actually do this in AppSheet. That is creating records from an Enumlist selection. So for each option, I have created an app to demonstrate how it works. So for the first option, this is the app that works with it. It's creating a loop in AppSheet. So over here, I have a simple app that is used to take attendance of students. So the first view you have over here, students. That basically has the information on the various students in the database. And we have the attendance page where you take the attendance of students. So to add a new record of attendance, you click on this plus button. You have the date in there. You click on this drop down to select the course. So let's say for sales, then the list of students for that particular course will pop up. So you can just select as many students that were present in the class. So I'm going to select as many as I want. Let's say these students, right? And I'm going to click done. Okay, so when I click save, this is going to save and create this list in AppSheet for me. When I come into my database, you see that this is gradually creating a record for each selection in my Enumlist. So for each of these ones you see over here, it's going to create, starting from the second one, the third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth. And when it's done, it modifies the selection and just leaves the first student or student ID that was selected in that selection. So that's how the first option works. It creates the records from the Enumlist. Okay, but this is done by AppSheet. So actions and AppSheet that work in a loop. Then the second option, okay, which is also something I really like, is using AppScript. So AppScript is a JavaScript language in the Google environment that is used to modify and make changes to the various platforms in Google. So you can actually do a lot of things by writing codes in AppScript and then get them done through Google Sheets, Google Doc, Gmail, G Drive, and all those things. Okay, so I'm going to click on this plus button and do the exact same thing. So click here, select sales, click on this plus button, and then I'm going to select the same number of students I did, like this. Click done, click save, come here, and then we have this over here. You see that? And then bam. Right, so this is the same thing, but this is achieved with AppScript. And you notice it's quite faster than with the first option I showed, which was with AppSheet. But then again, I'm going to show both options, and then you can choose which one you want. So let's do this. Okay, so we're going to start off by creating our app. I've gone ahead and created an app for both options. So we have attendance records option 1, attendance records option number 2. Okay, so I've already created an app, made a duplicate of it so that we don't need to go through the process of creating the entire app. Okay, so let me just walk you through what I have so far and then we go on from there. All right, so in our app, we basically have two tables. We have the students data table and then we have the attendance table. So let's first go to the students data table. So this is the students data table. Over here, we have a student ID, full name, job title, course, gender, ethnicity, age, country, and city. Okay, our key is the student ID, and then our label is the full name. Okay, these are very basic columns in our table. Then in the attendance table, okay, we have ID. For this particular column, for this particular app, we have what we call the repeat ID. I'll explain that. We have the date column, we have the course column, and then we have the student ID. And the very interesting thing about the where I've created a student's attendance table is that the students will be picked or will be selected based on the course selected. So over here, the course is an Enumlist, right? And it comes from the students table. So when you come here in the valid if section, you see I am selecting the courses in the students table. I'm finding a unique of it because I don't want duplicates. Then I'm sorting it alphabetically. So what this means is when you come here at attendance and you click the plus button, you have courses. Okay, because I saved, I need to save this. Okay, so let's look at this again. So when you select a course, you see this, engineering. Now, based on the course you select, the students that are taking the engineering course are the ones you have over here. So these are engineering students, right? If I change this to accounting, okay, you should have a different list of students. So the second one depends on the option you select in the first list. Okay, so how did I create this? When you come to the student's ID, this is an Enumlist and it's a ref from the students table. Okay, and then in the data validation section over here, I have this formula that says select student's ID where the course is equal to this rules course. Okay, so this will ensure that only students who have their course as this rules course will be selected. And that is why until you select a course, that this particular column doesn't show. Okay, great. So once we have this in place, what happens is that when I select like this and I click done, okay, and I save, so what we're going to have over here is just one record. So let's see how this looks in Google Sheets. So I'm opening my Google Sheet, coming to attendance, and you see over here I have my selection, okay, and these are all the students I just selected. Now what we want to achieve, okay, is that when I copy this down, so I'm going to copy this down like this. Okay, so what is going to happen is that for the first row or the first record, I want just the first name selected. Second one, I want the second name selected. So let me try if I can achieve something like that quickly. So I take this out, that's the first one. Second one is going to be something like this. So this is gone, and then that is gone. Okay, the third one, you have this gone. And then these also declared as well. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So I want AppSheet to go through and then delete these one by one. Okay, and then just leave the appropriate ID for each particular record. Okay, now to be able to achieve this in AppSheets, okay, we're going to create what we call a loop. Okay, the reason why we need a loop is because we don't know how many students can be selected at every point in time. Okay, so we have to be able to go through, okay, the action should repeat several times until the number of students selected, okay, a record has been created for each of them. Okay, and that is why we need this repeat column. This repeat column, the purpose of this column, okay, will help AppSheet to know how many times the initial transaction or the initial record we entered has been carried out. Okay, because you know the ID column is supposed to be unique. Okay, so you see it's unique throughout, but this repeat column will help AppSheet know that, okay, so over here I have currently done how many is this? I've currently done 7 records. In my list I had 7 entries, so that means I need to stop. Okay, so up until the point where the number of IDs over here, the repeat ID is equal to what you have in the selection, AppSheet is going to keep running this loop action. So basically that's the point of the repeat ID. I hope that explains it. Okay, so let's come back here and let's see how we can do this in AppSheet. Okay, so first and foremost, we need to create our loop action. And I just want to give credits to Matt from Multi-Tech Visions. I learned this from him, very great AppSheet guru. And he explained how you can create loops in 3 simple steps. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do this as well. Okay, so we're going to do this in the attendance table. So you click the plus here to create your first action. Okay, now whenever you're creating a loop, okay, the first thing is to create the action that will actually do what you want to achieve. In this case, we want to create new records from an existing transaction, right? So what we're going to do is create that action. So I'm going to call this create new attendance. records. That is the action. Okay, and it's working on the attendance table. And basically what we want to do is we want to add a new row to another table using values from this row. Now the table, surprisingly, is the same table, which is attendance table. Okay, so the ID is going to be equal to a unique ID, okay, because in AppSheet every ID has to be unique. Okay, the key has to be unique. So save. Then your repeat ID is going to be the same thing. Okay, it's important that the repeat ID is the same thing. Okay, so the repeat ID has to be the same. Okay, so we have that in place. And the next one is the date. The date is also going to be the same for all the records that we're going to create. So I'm going to save this. Okay, course is also going to be the same. So course as well. Save this. And the student ID. And the student ID is what is going to be different. Okay, so for the student ID, what you need to do is you need to select an ID based on the number of records that have already been done, right? So we're going to say, so here, student ID is going to be index. Okay, now from the student selection, you know the student ID in the initial selection is an Enumlist, it's a list, right? So from this, we need to select a particular ID based on the number of records we've done. So how do we know the number of records that have been done? So that's what we do. We do a count. Okay, so what are we counting? We are counting the number of repeated IDs that have been already recorded before this particular new row is about to be recorded, right? But then, you know, the repeated ID column contains several IDs. We need to ensure that the IDs that we are selecting or we are going to count are the IDs that relate to this particular row's ID, right? Good. So we're going to say attendance, the repeated ID, okay, where the repeated ID is equal to this rows dot this row dot repeated ID. Okay, so I forgot my select statement over here, like that. So select this, count that, okay, and then indexes. So it's going to look for the number of repeated IDs in the list that is equal to this. Now, mind you, when you enter the first record, okay, that the repeated ID is going to be there for the first time. So when it counts, it's going to have 1. Okay, but what we want to achieve is that it wants to start from the second one, because the first record is going to remain intact. We're not going to create another record for the first one. The first one, we're going to modify it to show only the ID for the first one, but the subsequent one is going to be the second ID. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this +1. Okay, so it's going to move on to the next record. I'm going to save this. Okay, so now we have an item for each field in our attendance table. So display, I'm going to hide this for now. I don't want to show as a button. Okay, and then I'm going to come to behavior. Now it's also very important to have a condition that will end the loop, else your loop is going to run over and over and over again. Your loop has to end at a certain point. Okay, so at what point should this loop stop running? So the condition, okay, to ensure that the loop ends at some point is basically to ensure that as long as the number of items selected in the Enumlist, right, is more than the number of repeated IDs have been created, then keep creating. Okay, once it's equal to, you have to stop. So this is what we're going to do. So the formula is going to read count, okay, student IDs. So because student ID is a list, it's going to count every item in this list. Okay, is greater than count. Okay, so select, okay, attendance ID, right, where the repeat ID is equal to this row dot repeat ID. Okay, so as long as this condition stays true, the action is going to keep running. Okay, so as long as this condition stays true, the action is going to keep running. So with that done, all we need to do is click on save, and let me see, and then we are done with our first action, which is the most important one, by the way. Okay, the next thing you need to do is to create a duplicate of this. So I'm going to create a duplicate of this. Okay, I'm going to call this the loop. So attendance records the loop. Okay, so let me just take this one. So I'm just going to attendance records loop. Okay, so we have this in place. Now for this one, it's just going to be a group action. We're grouping several actions together. And which actions are we grouping? We're grouping create a new attendance records over there. That's it. You're done with the second action you need to create. You have one more to go. Okay, the third one is you come here, you duplicate this, and this is going to be the repeat action. Okay, so for the repeat action, what you're going to do is you're going to execute an action on a set of rows. Okay, we're going to execute an action on a set of rows, and it's going to be on the same table. Okay, so the repeat action is always going to be on the first table that you're working with. In this case, in this peculiar case, both tables are the same. But ideally, sometimes you're going to run an action on one table that affects another table. Okay, and if you want to do a loop, okay, the repeat action is always going to be on the first table. Okay, now which columns or which rows do we want to affect? We know we just want to affect this row. That's the only one we're interested in. But the thing is that for this particular action to work, it has to be a list. It works on a list. It doesn't work on just one item. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make this a list just to beat the system. Okay, and then we're going to save this. Good. Now, which action do we want to run here? We want to run the loop. Right, so we're running the loop over here, and then we're going to save this. Okay, so let me save this. So we've created our 3 actions, right? Now what we need to do is bring the repeat back in the loop. And that is what is going to cause the never-ending cycle. So as long as the condition is in place, the loop happens, then the repeat is in the loop. And the repeat contains a loop, and then so on and so forth. So it keeps running that way. Okay, so we have these 3 in place. Now what we need to do is we need to carry out this action once a form is saved. Okay, so once an attendance is recorded, then this action kicks in. So we'll click on this plus button, okay, and I'll click on this link to bring us to the form view, right? And then under behavior, we're going to assign this to the loop. Okay, then we save. So what is going to happen is now when we select IT and we select the students, so 1, 2, 3, 4, click done, and we click save, we come here. So you see this is our first record, IT, then it keeps breaking. This is the second record, this is the third record, this is the fourth record. You get it? So now we've been able to create a record from our Enumlist. Now what we need to do is to create an action that now modifies the first student selection. Okay, so instead of having all the students in there, we won't just take the first one, right? And then that can easily be done by creating another action for this. So we'll come back here, we'll come to actions, plus, and say create an action. And this action is going to go select only first student. Okay, now this in the attendance table, what do we want to do? We want to set the values of some columns in this row. So in the student ID, what we want to do is basically select the first one. And the function to use in this case is index. So index, okay, so student ID, and then we want to select the first one. So which one? Number 1. That's it. Okay, then save. So we have this in place, right? So once student ID is once the entire loop is done, then this action should run. I'm going to hide this as well. Now what I want to do is I want to group both the loop action and then this together and then run them whenever a form is saved. So I'm going to create yet another group action. So create. So I'm going to call this group attendance actions. Okay, so here execute a sequence of actions. The first one is going to be our repeat, and the second one is going to be select only the first student. Okay, so you can put a group in a group. So the repeat has the loop, so that's fine. Now select only the first student. So once the repeat is done, then only the first student will kick in. Okay, I'm going to hide this as well, And then now I'll come back to my form. Okay, under behavior, I'm going to take this out, and then group attendance action is going to kick in. I'm going to save. So now let's see how this works. All right, so I'm going to come here, marketing, and I'm going to select a number of students. Done, then save. Now let's see how that works. So the first one kicks in. Second one should be coming in soon. Why is the second one not coming in soon? Okay, second one is in. Third one. Fourth one. So this is going to run. It takes a while. Okay. And then we have the last one. Good. And then this should be modified by a select one action. Let's see. Good. Okay, that took a while. Right, so we have this in place, everything is done, and then we are through. So that is option number one. That is how you use loops in AppSheet to actually break down an Enumlist into different records. Now, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the session as I did, and you found the video to be very useful. Unfortunately, the video is getting too long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end here, and I'm going to use the second approach, which is AppSheet, in another video. So stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.